Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver here on your 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. So this is what our trailer hitch is going to look like installed. As you can see, most of it is actually going to be up behind the bumper fascia here. So it's going to have a hidden design which does two things. Number one, it's going to provide us with a very factory-like appearance. And number two, it's going to give us the best overall ground clearance, which is particularly important for these vans that sit lower to the ground, like the Pacifica. So if we take a closer look at the receiver tube, you're going to see we have a nice black powder coated finish, as well as a rounded collar on the receiver tube. So again, this just gives us a better aesthetically pleasing appearance, and it's also going to do a great job of help protecting our hitch from rust and corrosion, being that it's on the underside of the vehicle. So adding a hitch to your Pacifica is an excellent option. It's going to make your vehicle that much more versatile. We can obviously use the trailer hitch for towing. We can also use it for a bike rack if we want to hit the trails, or a cargo carrier if we just need to free up some space inside the vehicle. Now we have plenty of these to choose from here at eTrailer, so make sure to check out our selection. So we're going to have a Class 3 rating here with our trailer hitch. This is going to provide us with a 4,000 pound gross trailer weight rating, which is the amount we can pull outward. And we also have a 400 pound tongue weight rating, which is the downward force on the receiver tube. Now keep in mind, if we're towing a particularly heavy trailer, we may want to use a weight distribution system. And this trailer hitch is rated for those systems. And if we're using one, our capacities actually increase to 5,000 pounds and 500 pounds respectively. So our receiver tube is going to have the industry standard 2" by 2". So there's another standard size as well, which is 1 1/4". I definitely, however, recommend going with the 2", no matter if we're towing or using bike racks or cargo carriers. And the reason for this is, although we may not need the extra capacity, the larger opening is going to give us a greater variety of bike racks and cargo carriers to choose from. So on the side of the receiver tube, we're going to have a standard 5/8" diameter hitch pin hole. That'll accept the standard 5/8" diameter hitch pin and clip. Keep in mind, these are going to be sold separately. They don't actually come with the hitch. I will say that most bike racks and cargo carriers do come with their own hitch pin. On the bottom of the receiver tube, we're going to have our safety chain loops. Those will accept both the larger clevis style as well as the smaller S-type hook. So in regards to fit, we're installing this trailer hitch today on a base model. However, it will work with all other models as well, except for the hybrid. There is, however, still a trailer hitch for the hybrid. It's just going to be a different part number. So now we have a couple measurements for you. They're going to help you when you're selecting your hitch mounted accessories. The first one I like to do for these low ground clearance vehicles is the distance from the ground to the bottom edge of the receiver tube. That's going to be 10.5 inches. And then I like to do from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube. That measurement will be useful when you're selecting your ball mount. That way you can make sure you get the correct rise and drop to tow your trailer level. This one's going to be right at 13 inches. And then finally we have the distance from the center of the hitch pin hole to the outside edge of the bumper. This one's pretty recessed. We're going to call that 5 inches. And the reason that measurement is useful, that way when we're selecting our folding accessories, we can make sure that they don't contact the bumper while they're in the folded position. So in regards to installation, this one's pretty simple. You don't have to take the bumper off or anything like that. We just have to do a few things such as lowering the exhaust, removing a heat shield, and then we have to trim a couple of the underbody components as well. But aside from that, it's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and walk you through this now. So the first step of our installation, we're going to be removing this underbody panel here underneath our van. Now it's a pretty large panel, so there are going to be several different types of fasteners securing this to the underside of the vehicle. So we're going to need a couple different tools. We're going to need a 10mm socket, an 8mm socket, as well as a flathead screwdriver. So we're going to start now with our 10mm. We're going to remove these silver bolts here on the outside of this panel. So once we have all those bolts on the outside of the panel removed, we're going to have 2 more here at the very back, and that'll be it for the silver bolts. Now we're going to move on to our plastic nuts here. We have a couple on the outside, one on the inside. We'll remove these with a 10mm socket. We have 2 more of these plastic nuts here in the very back of our panel. And that should be the last of those. Now we're going to switch over to our 8mm socket. We're going to have these black bolts on the outside panel as well. We have a few more on the outside of the fender. So now we're almost ready to remove the panel. We have these little plastic fasteners here. We'll turn those counterclockwise to loosen those up. I don't believe they're going to come out fully, but we have one here and then one over here. Now we're going to grab onto our panel. We have 2 little holes here. Probably just stick my finger in these and just pull straight down. So I have our panel most of the way down. However, we can't remove it completely because it looks like I actually missed a couple screws inside on the driver's side there, attaching it to the wheel well. So we'll go ahead and take our 8mm socket, go up in there, and remove those last 3 screws. So now we can go ahead and remove our panel completely and set it aside. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and lower our exhaust. So we're going to be breaking free the 2 rearmost isolators. There's one here, one back here. Before we do that, we want to take some sort of strap or stand, support the exhaust here. That way it doesn't fall too far down and become damaged. Just going to use 2 points on the control arm here with a cam buckle strap. Pull that tight to support it. Now we're going to take a spray lubricant. We're going to spray down the rubber isolator to make it easier to remove the hanger from. So now we can go ahead and remove the hanger from the isolator. Now you can use a pry bar if you have this, but we're going to be using a specialized tool. Now that we have the exhaust lowered, we're going to be removing the heat shield. In order to do that, we're going to have these plastic nuts, one here, one up above here. We'll take a 10mm socket and go ahead and get those out. So you're going to have to pull down on your exhaust over here in order to reach that one above the muffler. Now we can pull this out and set it aside. So now we're going to take one of our pull wires or our fish wire here, whatever you want to call it. We're going to take the coiled end, we're going to insert it through the circular hole closest to the bumper, and we're actually going to feed that all the way up to the access hole here. So it may be a little bit tricky to get the coil to come out there. But once we do have it through there, we want to make sure we don't pull it too far and pull the other end up into the frame. But we'll take one of these smaller spacer blocks and then thread on one of our carriage bolts. Then we can shove these spacer blocks through the frame as well as our carriage bolt. So now we'll repeat that same process for this hole here. So now for this hole here, it's going to be even easier. Place our spacer block over the coiled wire, thread on our carriage bolt, and then we're going to be using the reverse pull wire technique. We just place our carriage bolt up into the frame, slide our spacer block up through there, and then pull them both through. And now we'll just repeat that same process on the other side. So now we can go ahead with an extra set of hands, lift our hitch up into position. Go ahead and place your fish wires through the correct holes first. You're going to have to go up over the exhaust on the passenger side first, and then you should be able to lift the driver's side into position. We'll take one of our flange nuts here and thread that on. So if you can, try to pin your bolt against the frame or the hitch. That way when you're threading on the nut, you don't risk pushing it back up and in. So now I'm going to take a 19mm socket, I'm just going to secure the hitch to the vehicle using my impact here, and then we'll come back with a torque wrench and torque everything down to the specifications in our instructions. So now we're ready to trim our heat shield. What we're going to do is we're going to take a tape measure. We're going to use the rearmost port here of the heat shield. We're going to measure up 11 inches. Then we're going to make our mark. And what we're going to do is we're actually just going to make a line and come straight across and trim out that whole lower half. So in order to trim this, we can just use a pair of tin snips. Really anything you have, a nice heavy duty pair of shears would probably work as well. Or if you have a Dremel, that'll certainly work too. So we're just going to follow our line here and begin cutting all the way across. Now we can go ahead and discard this section. What I think I'm going to do with this rough edge here, I'm going to take a pair of pliers and I'm just going to fold that under slightly. That way we don't have to worry about any jagged edges. Now we got our heat shield back into position. We're going to be securing it with one of our plastic nuts. The other plastic nut that we removed above the muffler is no longer there because we actually removed that section of the heat shield. Therefore, we only need one nut to re-secure it. So now we're going to take our underbody panel here. We need to trim this as well. Now there's a great diagram in our instructions, but we're going to go up 6 inches from the bottom of this tab, and then we're going to come across 32 inches. So we went ahead and made our outline with a paint marker. Now we can again take a set of shears, some heavy duty shears or some tin snips, or again possibly a cutoff wheel. We'll go ahead and cut this section out here. So before we re-secure our panel, we want to make sure that we go ahead and raise our exhaust back up into position. So keep in mind with our panel here, we did actually remove a few of the attachment points. So we won't be installing all of the hardware. We are going to be leaving some out. Just make sure you re-secure everything with the available holes. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver here on your 2017 Chrysler Pacifica.